So I'm talking today with UCP MLA Drew Barnes from Cypress-Medicine Hat. Drew is he is the last, I believe, loyalist from the Wildrose Party who refused to cross the floor and stood on principle. And he's still sitting in the legislature now on the government side and doing his best for his constituents out there. And Drew's very outspoken and doesn't hesitate to speak what he feels is best for his constituents at any given time. And it's something I like as well, as Drew clearly runs his own Twitter account, which so few politicians do. I know it can get them in soup now and then, but it's just nice to get candid and direct thoughts from public officials at times. So, Drew, thanks again for coming on, by the way.
Cory, thanks for having me. It's nice to see you again.
Yeah, thanks. And something that caught my eye was a tweet you put out with a link to a site talking about constitutions in times of crisis and speaking on how Alberta could use its own provincial constitution. And Alberta constitution, it's been an idea that's been around for a while, but not many people speak openly about it and some of the benefits that such a thing may have. Can you expand a bit on that?
Yeah, I sure can, Cory. Thank you. First of all, it not only caught your eye, it caught the eye of hundreds of Albertans. Hundreds of Albertans are interested in more solidifying individual, family, community position in Alberta and Alberta's position with Canada. So I've had lots of good interest, lots of good response, lots of good ideas. To me, Cory, I think it's a necessity. You know, the belief is that we have an Alberta Constitution now, although it's not written. And that's the history of all the laws and the jurisprudence and the decisions. And my goodness, how hard would it be to pull all that together? So I think the opportunity for 4.2 million Albertans who want to be engaged to get together and absolutely, outline the values, the family beliefs, the community needs, the desire for risk-taking and resource movement. There's so many good things that would come of this. And the fact that hundreds of Albertans have reached out to me, I believe I'm in the right.
Well, I'm glad you got such a good response. Again, that's how social media is such a valuable tool, especially since you can't really go out door knocking or having large town hall meetings to interact with constituents. Being able to reach out that way and get some feedback. I mean, if you had hundreds of people telling you to get stuffed, well, it was an idea balloon that perhaps is not right for the time. One of the things that stands out, for example, I'd like to see in an Alberta Constitution is something we've dearly been lacking in Canada is entrenched property rights. A good strong protection of our property rights and more of a core value being such. But of course, we know that would run afoul of the federal version of things, which really looks at it, like tell us we have the enjoyment of property, not the right to possess it and so on, or sell it necessarily. So how do you think that would work, though, with the inevitable clashes that will come with our central government if we start moving along with protecting our own rights provincially?
Well, thanks for that. Well, absolutely. Nothing moves unless it's pushed, and Alberta has to push its position in confederation with Ottawa. Alberta families, Alberta free enterprise people, Alberta wealth and job creators need protection and pushback as well. So I absolutely believe something like the entrenchment of property rights and the entrenchment of property rights could guarantee full and fair compensation when we have to expropriate for the public good. It could guarantee complete access to courts when the government may be overstepping its bounds. Our democratic system is built on checks and balances for the individual and families are crucial. Cory, a constitution could go much further to limit the growth in the size of government and protect individuals, communities, and families, and free enterprise and the opportunity to create wealth. We could talk about our need and our ability to take risk, to move resources, to use free trade to create wealth and create jobs. We could do things, as an example, like limit the size of the growth of government. A constitution could say government spending could only increase by the amount of population growth and inflation, unless there's an emergency. Cory, we're in a situation now where Alberta has 100 billion in debt. Our GDP has fallen from some side of 350 billion to 300 billion, and a third, 33% debt to GDP is a ratio that I never thought I'd see in Alberta. Those are the kind of things that a constitution could protect. But Cory, I don't want to focus on the numbers because it can be so much more than that. We can talk about our ability to share, our ability to help each other. I see it every day when medicine hatters, Albertans and Cypress-Medicine hatters give their time, their money, their efforts. We could, part of this constitution could outline our desire to protect and promote that. It could also go into defining and outlining the levels of responsibility for all the levels of government. My goodness, reading the other day that government might be 44 or 45% of our economy. The report I was reading said economies grow the most when government's only 32 or 33% of the economy. So that's something that needs to be looked at. But every wealth creator, job creator, small business person I talk to, by the time they get through municipal, provincial, federal, sometimes school board and hospital board bylaws, my goodness, it's an exercise in waste and nightmare. And those are the kind of things that a constitution, we could clearly outline the responsibilities of every level of government and keep them in their box and allow free enterprise and families and communities to be bigger.
Well, yeah. Well, I understand how a constitution can entrench some things so that they aren't changed at the whim of the government. One of the things that comes to mind is, say, fixed election dates. Yeah, that's great, but until a majority government finds it's inconvenient for them, and then they just set it aside and move on. If it was actually constitutionally entrenched, it doesn't mean it's immutable and impossible to change something, but they'd sure have to work a heck of a lot harder before breaking their own laws in that sort of sense, and perhaps go to Albertans before they change something so radical as that. Or Balanced Budget Act, again, same thing. As long as you got a majority, you can just vote and throw it out, so it doesn't really matter. Constitution gives another level of protection. You'd spoken a bit about discussions in Constitution would have to go around the province and talk to a lot of citizens and so on, and design something that would work best for them. What kind of process would you envision?
Well, I'd envision a constitutional convention. There's 87 provincial constituencies for the Alberta legislature. So what if we had elections in all 87 constituencies to elect one representative to be the constitutional representative for that constituency? What if we gave that group of people a year, 2 years to engage, consult, research? We need a lot of time to meet and discuss this with experts. And that's one of the other things, Cory, that's happened is a lot of experts have come forward since I've put out my tweet and my social media offering help. And let's give these people a year or two to pull it all together. And then let's have a constitutional convention. Let's have a discussion. Let's start to write this out, and let's start to make Alberta the freest, most prosperous place in North America as we should be.
Well, and consultation and a process are essential. If you're doing something as big and as entrenched as that, you want to make sure you get it right, of course. But at the same time, you don't want something to die a death by consultation. I'll just move on to something. You were on the Fair Deal panel, and you guys put in a lot of work, made a lot of whistle stops, and talked to a lot of people, and it came to some conclusions, which were finally released. Yet now we've seen, okay, great. On the provincial police force, for example, it seems pretty clear Albertans want to move in that direction. We don't need to rush in that direction. We want to do it right. But it's been kicked down the road to another expert group to, it sounds like, discuss further whether or not we even want one, much less, I think at this point we should be at the designing and figure out how we're going to do it, not whether or not we're going to do it. But sometimes the consultation turns into the end of things. You've said we should move on in the police force sooner rather than later.
Yeah, absolutely, Cory. So sooner rather than later. First of all, it's important to keep in mind 3 or 4 things. A provincial police force in no way means that Medicine Hat, Calgary, Edmonton, Lethbridge wouldn't have their own city police forces. Secondly, with the support that the federal government currently gives the RCMP, let's talk about that for a second. In most cases, the municipality owns the office, sometimes the cars, owns the infrastructure now anyway. The RCMP doesn't. with the money that is provided from the federal government, there's strong signals that that is going to be reduced or discontinued because of rising costs in the RCMP and because of some troubles they're having attracting man and woman power to fill those positions. So so that's important to know. But the provincial police force would give us better service. It would allow rural Alberta, where crime has skyrocketed because of the economy and the times that we're in right now. It would allow police that are accountable to the provincial legislature or the provincial premier to give Albertans better service. And then secondly, Ontario has their own police force. Quebec has their own police force. The one area that the Fair Deal panel in all of its 70 some pages had trouble getting out was the leverage, the signals that Albertans can gain from Ottawa by showing that we are self-reliant, by showing that we are free and strong, and a police force is part of that. And we continually bang heads with Ottawa. The most visible parts, of course, are over the lack of resource movement, the lack of free trade, and the $670 billion of transfer and payments that have gone to Ottawa. And I just think that the leverage that could be gained and the better service, to me, it's a no-brainer. Let's do it.
Yeah, well, it could certainly be an opportunity. There's been a lot of discussion this year about issues with police cultures, perhaps, and mandates and training and things like that. What an opportunity then to take a force and start it from scratch. Let's look at what's gone wrong with the older force that served us well, but perhaps has some internal issues that are obsolete and aren't serving the public as they should. At this point, I'd just say let's get our foot off the brake and get on with it. I'm glad to hear that some MLAs are willing to come out and say that as well. So thank you very much for coming on today, Drew, to expand on all of that. I'm looking forward to seeing and hearing more out of you as you keep examining ways to make Alberta a better place down the road. Where can people get in touch with you or find out more information on what you're up to?
Yeah, thank you, Cory. The best way is through my email at drew.barnes@assembly.ab.ca, or please call my constituency office anytime, 403-528-2191. I appreciate the opportunity, Cory, first of all, to be on your show, and thanks for all the work you've done. When I showed up 10 years ago interested in politics, you were already there and concerned about Alberta's future. So thank you. And I really appreciate the chance to talk to all Albertans anytime.
Great. Thanks, Drew. I'm sure we'll be talking again.
You betcha, Cory. Bye for now.